Hello everybody, my name is Beck. Welcome to my channel, welcome back to my channel. So today I will be going through all the books that I've read in the month of September. Apologies in advance if I mispronounce anything, dyslexic, so I can't help it, and I will try my best to not waffle too much, which is like a trait of mine. But if you have any confusions or if you want me to clarify anything, feel free to leave it down below. I will try my best to explain it the best way possible. I am terrified of wrap up videos for this very reason, because I can't string a sentence to save my life sometimes. But anyway, let's get a move on. I will be referring to my Goodreads. If you'd like to follow me on my Goodreads, on my Instagram, on my Twitter, links will be down below, or you can just find me everywhere with the same username. The very first book that I finished in the month of September was You and Me on Vacation by Emily Henry. If you have the American copy, it is called People We Meet on Vacation, which is the orange cover. The difference between the American version slash the UK slash the Australian version is the epilogue, apparently. And if you do have the American version, can you please tell me what happens in your epilogue? I would like to compare and contrast. I did write some notes behind, so hopefully I don't go off a tangent, because it's been a while since I read this book. It's been like a good month at this point by the time I'm filming this. So I did originally rate this book 4 stars on Goodreads. Now that I have time to think about it, it's more of a, dare I say, 2.5 to 3 personally for me, because I had some issues with this book, because I just found this relationship somewhat realistic but at the same time incredibly toxic, and that is why I had a rough time. And these are all my tabs if you're wondering. It's just like different POVs. I don't even remember the system I use. Okay, so pink is apparently spicy love scenes, blue is new chapter, and the yellow is the funny haha. I got annoyed halfway through the book because I just didn't like the characters, and that's on me. There are aspects of this book that I really enjoy, and I like Emily Henry's writing style, but I just cannot get into the characters. I just don't like them, and I feel like they were better apart than together, dare I say. Like, please don't come for me. This is just my personal opinion. I'm just like a random person on the internet, okay? The writing is really self-aware. The characters, I guess, are self-aware, and I like how mental health was addressed, therapy was mentioned, and I think the chemistry was so. It wasn't like the best when I was reading it. I did listen to the audiobook, and I had to like reread certain scenes just to like let the situation sink in. A lot of miscommunication, which really bugs me. But the premises of the story is between like the friendship between like Poppy and Alex, and why they didn't speak for like 2 years when they used to like go on vacation all the time. Just imagine two people who've known each other for a very long time, and they're refusing to take that extra step to go into a relationship because they're scared that they will ruin everything. And they did end up not speaking for like 2 years. But the aspect that I really didn't like was when they had to like drag other people into their nonsense. To me, toxic relationship, which they didn't end up together, but that's on me. If you end up liking this book, disliking this book, have any further discussions you'd like to have with me, feel free to leave it down below. If you don't want to like leave a comment, feel free to DM me on Instagram. We can talk about it. I would be interested to see a different perspective, but I finished this book at 11 p.m. Maybe that affected my mood. But I feel like all they had to do was to maybe like sit down for a couple of hours and really like talk things through, and both of them go to therapy to like fix their issues, and we wouldn't be here. But life is not that simple, and I get it. Alright, the second book that I read was The Happy Ever After Playlist by Abby Jimenez. This is like the first book that I finished from this author. I really like this book, and where did my sticky note go? I would just like to say, don't buy sticky notes from Kmart because they do not stick. They fall off. Spend a couple of extra dollars because I cannot find the sticky notes for this one, so I'm just gonna have to wing the review for this one. The Happy Ever After Playlist by Abby Jimenez, I rated a 4 star. I really enjoyed this book. It was so dramatic. Once again, the yellow tabs are all the haha moments, and it is dual POV. Anyway, so it's a relationship between Sloane, the artist, and Jason, the rock star. Jason is an up-and-coming rock star, and Sloane is going through some trauma because her husband just passed away a year ago when the story first started, or maybe 2 years ago. I don't remember on top of my head. It's been a little bit, but she's grieving still. And they meet in the random circumstances where Jason's dog jumps into Sloane's car, and she gets a fine because she had to stop in the middle of the road. The dog just like yeets itself into the car, And that's when the shenanigans starts in the story. So Jason's ex-girlfriend was supposed to be taking care of the dog, but the dog was let loose. The dog just ran. I don't remember the dog's name. I'm so sorry. But basically the dog does all of that. And Sloane ends up taking the dog home, tries to contact the owner. The owner doesn't answer his phone, aka Jason, because he's like in Australia. Hello, I'm from Australia too. So Jason eventually does pick up his phones, but Sloane was like, hey, this is my dog now because I tried to contact you, but you didn't respond to me, blah blah blah, etc. And that's how their romance starts and blooms, and they go through like whole courtship and whatnot. If you'd like to see what happens, I guess you have to read the book, or else I'm gonna spoil it for you. Premises of the story sounds like insane. If you like a rockstar romance, I guess this one's for you. I personally don't like rockstar romance, but I did enjoy this book, so I gave this a 4-star. There was some issues with it. Please check the trigger warning before you start reading any of the books that I have mentioned here. They deal with like pretty heavy topics. I forgot to say that. Moving on. This is the third physical book that I read in the month of September, according to my Goodreads. So I have The Inheritance Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I was attempting to read all 3 books. The author just recently announced a 4th book. I think that's a novella. I'm not too sure. Please don't quote me on that. I saw it briefly on Instagram before I started filming this video. I also mentioned this in my other video. Besides the point. Again, the sticky notes are here. Let's see if I can place them in order. I wrote a lot of stuff on this sticky note, but it makes absolutely freaking no sense because it's been a while. So there's this eccentric old man that passes away. Avery, our bestie in the story, is somehow roped into this situation. She's just like a senior high school kid. I think in her final year of high school. She comes from a very broken family, and she lives with her sister and a abusive boyfriend. But anyway, the situation's bad. She's like attempting to sleep in her car just to avoid the family drama. One random day, she gets called into the office and she gets accused of cheating. That's the beginning of the story. And then the next day, she gets called into the office again, like the school office, and she apparently is contacted by this like rich family estate in regards to an inheritance, and one thing leads to another. She meets like a bunch of the brothers in the family, the extended family, and they're all trying to suss her out to see whether or not she like scams her way into this situation. So there's a lot of family drama going on. Like I said, this old man that passed away, he's an eccentric billionaire, and he likes to make these puzzles throughout the house, and they're trying to figure out the situation. Am I explaining myself properly? And there's like a couple of love interests here and there, and we're like, oh my god, who is she gonna end up with? I wasn't that invested in that. Like, the premises of the story sounds so interesting. Like, puzzles, games, love triangle, family drama sounds amazing, but the execution fell a little bit too short for me. Because of that, I couldn't read the second and third book because I lost interest in it. I did listen to audiobooks, so it made it a lot easier for me to like concentrate. Domestic violence is mentioned. If that's a trigger warning for you, again, please look at the trigger warnings before you pick up any of these books because it can be a little bit dark. I don't know, there's like certain YA books that are kind of dark where I'm thinking to myself like, should it be classified as YA? But I think this one is definitely YA because it wasn't that graphic, but there is mentions of like heavier topics, so bear that in mind. One of my friends recommended me the TV show that this book was kind of loosely based on. I'm not too sure if it was like the book was based on that show or the show was based on this book, but my friend did say to watch the show because it's apparently really good, and the premises sounds like almost identical to this book at this point, or heavily influenced. Again, don't quote me, I don't know too much. Eventually I am going to finish the other 2 books in the series, but for now I'm not that invested, and I wish I was because I had really high hopes for this. And I like to say, if I was a 17, I think she's 17, or even an 18-year-old girl in like final year of high school, if I was placed in that kind of situation, I would have fumbled the bag. I'm just saying, like, I can't blame her for her choices. Okay, the next section is Kindle Unlimited audiobooks, or the combination of both things, and they mainly shift the romance because I've been on a paranormal kick and I like reading romance and mystery. These are my 2 top tier genres, and I also like crime and true crime and all of that. So I started this series of Prince of the Other Worlds, and is a dragon shifter romance by Kara Lockharte and Cassie Alexander. So there's two authors that's working on this. I just typed shifter romance in, I think, the Anyplay app, and it popped up. And it had pretty decent ratings when I did a tiny bit of research on Goodreads. So I was like, good enough for me. If I see a 4-star, I'm gonna go for it. And I really did enjoy the story, surprisingly. Like I mentioned, it is a dragon shifter romance. The first book is Dragon Call. The second book is Dragon Destined. And I did read the novella after I read the two books, which doesn't make any sense because it's like the very first thing you should have read, which is Dragon Don't Date. I rated that one a 3 stars. The main storyline I rated 4 stars. The reason why I had to stop at book number 2 was because 3 and 4 was not available on Anyplay. They only had like the novellas and the 2 books, and I thought that was it. And I was like, no, where's the rest? I need the ending. It's either I have to pay $16 for the audible version, or I have to renew my subscription as Scribd, which I might do because I have a couple of books that I want to read from Scribd that's not available anywhere else, and it's cheaper than paying individual books from like Amazon. But at the same time, I have so many freaking books that I could read. I don't necessarily have to finish it right now. So I want to save it for a time where all the books that I want to read are from Scribd. This series is about several shifters, dragon shifters, and this human girl whose name I completely forgot. Let me look for it. This is a series between Damien Blackwood and Andy, who happens to be Chinese American. I'm Chinese Australian, so close enough. When they were first describing her as Asian, I was like, oh, okay, representation, slow. And then they started talking about Chinese culture stuff, and I was like, and then they mentioned that she was Chinese, and I was like, that is rare. That has never happened before. I have never read a main female protagonist in a shifter world that happens to be Chinese. I was also kind of reluctant because sometimes they don't do us justice sometimes. I could tell the authors did some research. I'm not going to lie. I started paying a lot more attention to the details mentioned in the first 2 books. I haven't read the other 2. What I'm trying to say is, I'm just shocked that the main female protagonist of this story, of this series, is a person of color who happens to be Asian, who happens to be similar background to me, except for the American part. There were some parts where I could relate. The cultural stuff gets mentioned like here and there, and so far it has been accurate. That's okay on my end reading it. I don't like thinking this way, but I have been disappointed by certain things written by certain authors that made me like on high vigilance just in case I have to drop the series. But so far I really enjoy the dragon shifter romance. The only complaint I really have about the series is the audacity of Anyplay only giving me the first 2 books and not the other 2 books. Like, I need it. I was so tempted to take out my card and swipe and just buy the ebook of freaking Amazon so I can get the audiobook cheaper, and hopefully they will drop the rest of the books because I want to know what happened. Did I even talk about the story? So it's dragon shifter romance. So Damien is one of the enforcers. I think he is like one of the higher ranking hierarchies. He is portrayed as this billionaire playboy. It's a front that he has. He lives in this freaking mansion in the middle of nowhere, and our main female protagonist, who is a nurse, gets called into the mansion one random day because they need assistance, like medical assistance, because one of their shifter person, part of the pack, got injured. He basically needs looking after because the other shifter dudes, Damien and friends, are trying to hunt down like the evil shifters, and they're just trying to protect the town and whatnot, and they can't look after one of their shifter friends who happens to be critically ill due to like a fight from their previous saving attempts. Andy is called in to go to the mansion to basically look after this shifter who's on like a bunch of like medical stuff, and her job is to monitor this dude for a day for a really good paycheck. Andy lost her parents and she only has like a brother left, and he recently went missing, and she's like trying to hunt him down, and it's all interlinked and interchanged because there's like a lot of family drama, a lot of tea, missing persons, mystery, all up my alleyway with romance in it. So yeah, that's why I was so invested in the story, only for Anyplay to tell me that they don't have the rest of the books, and that made me really sad. And then the next series I started was Tails and Claws by Nancy Cummings. Okay, the first book I read was Half Tail Will Travel, and the second book was Pull by the Tail, and the third one was Tail Dark and Handsome. Did I pick up these books because of the title? Yes. I didn't read the fourth book, which is Tattletale, because the main male protagonist of the story was a human being and I was just not interested. I need paranormal love interest. I don't want to read about real life men at the moment. Does that say a lot about me? I don't know. Like, everyone has to be paranormal or I don't want it. I don't remember the nitty gritty details of each story because it was an audiobook that I was listening to. I didn't download the Kindle versions for this, surprisingly. Even I think it's on Kindle Unlimited. From memory, the first book was about a single parent trope. The alien guy has 2 young kids that he has to look after, and there's like some family drama going on because his sister is also like living with them to help them out because their parents recently passed away. So the 2 of them are currently taking care of their nephew and niece. The alien cat guy, requested like a wife or a bride because he just needed help. That was his original intention. So he goes out for this like marriage service and tries to find a bride. So the alien cat man eventually does fall in love with the human woman. I don't remember the names, that's why I'm saying all of this. The human woman obviously gets annoyed with him because she picks up the fact that he is kind of using her kind of like an extra helping hand in the situation. Plus the sister, like his sister is not nice to her at all. Like she's like throwing shade at her all the time. So there's like some family drama, but the kids are really cute in the story and I really enjoy that. But I still rate it a 3-star because I felt like the drama was a bit too much and I would have started beef with the sister is what I'm saying. I know they're family and all, but sometimes one can only take so much. Oh, the second story is about more family drama. So if you enjoy family drama, here's the tea. It's a matchmaking service kind of series. So Georgia is matched to this alien. She was like on her way. It takes about a month for her to like travel all the way to other galaxy. Like Georgia's like having a really rough time and she decides to say, F it, I'm going to travel across the galaxy. I'm gonna find a husband, an alien husband. I don't care anymore. Like, I'm done with human men. Relatable. So she goes through the matching service. She goes onto the ship. She travels like a month in. Like, she's talking to this alien guy, but he ghosts her like halfway through the trip because by the time she gets there, apparently he has found another human wife. He didn't bother to tell her. She's trapped in the situation because she has no money left. She sold everything essentially. She doesn't even have money to begin with because she's broke because she got fired from her job because her ex-fiance was cheating on her and all that stuff. And the solution that this guy proposes, the alien guy that she was supposed to get married, was like, you can hook up with my brother instead. The brother is a better option, and that's the story between both of them. And the third book I rated a 4-star. I like this one the most because I actually wrote a review for it. I usually just give a star ratings on Goodreads and have it move on, but I actually wrote the ex getting run over by car once wasn't good enough for me, but it was something, and that made me remember what the story was about. Like, she gets left at the altar, and not only that, her ex-fiance actually left her with a bunch of debt, and then the debt collectors like show up at her wedding when she's like all distressed and stuff, like asking for the money. Like, it's a loan sharks kind of situation. So basically our main female protagonist is in big financial trouble. The groom running away with her best friend. So that's the tea, and the only solution to get out is for her to like find a job, a different job, a high paying job. And she bumps into this like rich alien dude with a son. I really like stories with like a single dad trope, but he did get on my nerves, the alien dude. The son really wants a friend, so he tries his best to like befriend our main female protagonist, and it's funny. And then our alien bachelor that has a son, like he has drama surrounding him because apparently he's like a well-known socialite, I think from memory. Oh, he's not a socialite. He actually owns like a shipping company of some sorts with his like family members. So he comes from like all rich money. His ex-wife died under a very like concerning situation. They got trapped in a sandstorm and she died mysteriously after that. It was ruled out as an accidental death, but a lot of people think that the dude yeeted her because they were arguing all the time and she was like going to rehab and all of that. There was like suspicion going along those lines, so everybody kind of knows the tea. Our main female protagonist has to go and work for this guy, and he is broody, and they meet under the worst kind of circumstances on vacation. Like, she's on vacation and he's like working. The reason why she was on vacation was because effort, I already paid for the honeymoon, I'm just gonna go with my mom. And that's how they meet at that location. She does end up getting revenge. It wasn't enough for me, but revenge is revenge. So let's freaking move on. And then the next book I read, which was an arc, is 10 Years by Pernell Hodges. Yes, I ended up reading the book. Here's the thing, I didn't like it. I did rate it 3 stars because I bumped it up from a 2.5 to a 3 because of the ending. TLDR, the story was kind of a little bit too much for me. The story is basically about, from memory, I think it's you're dating your deceased best friend's boyfriend, so her ex-boyfriend technically. It was really sad. Took me a couple of times to get into the story, but for some reason I just couldn't do it until like I think 2 days before the arc was due to return, and that's when I like forced myself to read it. I didn't actually have to turn in a review if I didn't want to, but I felt like I needed to because I was in too deep. If I was in a mood to read it, I would have rated it a lot higher. And then another arc that I ended up reading was Pack of Lies by Charlie Adahara. It's my very first book from her. I know she has written a previous series of it. Apparently the one that I mentioned, Pack of Lies, is like a spin-off of one of the characters from the main series, and I think I'm just gonna go back and read those to have a better understanding of what was going on. But if you enjoy like a murder mystery shifter romance, once again, just a lot more crime solving, and there's like a romance between like a shifter and a human. It's romance. It was really good. I enjoyed the audiobook, and that's why I consumed it. I read the arc along with the audiobook that came out. And then the next book I read was The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. In my last TBR video, I did mention that I was going to read this book. I was really conflicted with The House in the Cerulean Sea because had I not known about the history behind the influence of the book, I would have given maybe a 3.5 star rating, but I chose not to give a rating on my Goodreads. I just left it blank and I wrote a review saying that I have read this book, but I will not be giving a review due to the nature of the story and the influence of the story. I think that's fair. Even without the underlying issues surrounding the book, I think it was just a pretty average read for me. I did like some of the characters, but again, knowing the history behind the influence of this book, it made me like iffy about it. Next book I read was Warriors of Sand Green Box Set Volume 1, Warlords Bride Collection, also by Nancy Cummings. I think once you read a book by author and you manage to finish it, you just get recommendations, and that's probably why I clicked on it. I rated it a 3 star. I've read a lot of like alien romance for the past couple of months, and for some reason this one just didn't hit the mark for me. I can't say for sure like why it didn't hit the mark for me, but I rated a 3 star. It was an alien romance and everyone should read alien romance, and that's why I picked it up, and it was an average read for me apparently. I don't remember it, which is problematic. And then the next book I read was Dragon's Guard, The Dragon Shifter's Mate by Eva Chase, and rated it a 3 star. And then I finished the book obviously, and then I moved on to the second book because it's once again a series, because with a lot of shifter romance, usually a series that is attached to the book. So I started the second book and I was listening to the audiobook on Anyplay, I think, and I rated it a 2 star because I got irritated by certain word choices. I had to rewind the audiobook a couple of times to like make sure I heard it correctly, because sometimes you do miss certain words. I'm a really good listener, but sometimes just to be sure before I write a review, the main female protagonist was trying to defend herself by proving a point that she is a strong, independent woman that needs a man. Like, she can take care of herself. Like, she's been at this job for a while and she doesn't need like an alpha male to like bring her down. So she defends herself by saying, I'm not breakable, don't treat me like a China doll. And see, I understand the context, like saying that she's not as fragile as a China doll. It can be like the antique, but again, maybe it's like a personal thing for me. I am Chinese, like I mentioned a couple times, but if it's like used towards an Asian person, it has like negative connotations in my eyes. I know I can't represent like every single Asian person out there or every Chinese person out there, but personally for me, when I saw that word, I DNF'd that book. And then I started Alien Ransom by Ella Maven. A lot of authors that write alien romance has the name Ella. I just realized. I also rated it a 3 star. It's alien romance that evolves around like extraterrestrial motorcycle clubs. Interesting premise, but there's something about it that I couldn't get into. That's why I rated it a 3 star. It was okay, an average read. And then I started reading Claiming Her Bears, a complete trilogy by Sky McKinnon. It was cute, but it was also like an average read for me. I think it was like 3 novellas. Yeah, a post-apocalyptic series plus a novella. The premises of the story seemed interesting. Once again, like the execution felt a little bit too short for me. There were some parts I really liked and some parts where I thought it was like, it was okay. Yeah, it was an average read. It was not bad. 3-star is not a bad rating, okay? I'd just like to say, if 3-star is just my average rating, for me to give a 5-star, I have to like be in love. 4-star rating is essentially a 5-star rating for like most people. And then I read 150 happy facts about the Happy Broadcast, which was another arc that I just stumbled upon randomly by Keith Bonici, and I rated a 5-star because it made me really happy. It's just like 150 random facts, colorfully illustrated and presented in a book. And I needed that in my life because I need some happiness. So that made me really happy. That's why I rated it 5 stars. And then I read The Alien's Accidental Bride by C.V. Walters. I didn't know the audiobook came out. I read the actual Kindle version of it and then I listened to the audiobook afterwards. So I read it twice and I still rated it a 3-star. And once again, it's one of those books where I had really high hopes for whatever reason because I kept seeing it. And this book, Barista and the Bear, is a romance between a witch that she didn't know she was a witch and a bear shifter. It was just a little bit too fast paced for me. It's like fated mate. It was cute in the beginning and then it got a little bit like, oh, I forgot to mention the author by Lockharte. Like, I've seen several people rate it 5 stars on my like timeline and I was like, surely this is a short read, I'm just gonna pick it up. So I downloaded it on my Kindle Unlimited. It took me like 2 months to finish it for some reason, and once I finally finished it I realized why. It was just not for me. I thought it was an average read again. Originally I was gonna read all of the series, but I decided like the first book was just not for me and I just have to move on. Like, the premise of the story is so cute because bear shifters are usually my jam, but I had to move on because I couldn't get into it. But I did end up finish that book. Here's the history between this book. I have downloaded, then I returned it, then I got it back again, and it took me like several times to like open it and really sit down and start reading it because I tried so many times and it just didn't work out. How have I been filming for an hour? And then the next book I read was The Big Fat Alien Wedding Mates of Vakuten by Anthena Storm. I rated 3-star. I had a lot of trouble following the story. And the last book I read in the month of September was Ranger by Kate Rudolph, and I once again gave it a 3-star. It's about a alien prince that got kidnapped by a bunch of humans trying to sell him off to the black market as a slave, and then our human protagonist saves him and they run away together. There's more to the story obviously, but that's like the shortened version of it, aka another alien romance. So that's all the books I have read in the month of September. I have probably read more than that, but that's all I can remember on top of my head / the stuff that I recorded back on Goodreads. If it's not on Goodreads, I don't remember at all. I'm pretty sure I've also read some webtoons. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave me a comment down below. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content. Hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Any recommendations? Any alien romances? Shift the romance, leave it down below. Like to hear from you. Any opinions? Feel free to voice your opinion. I like to read them. Bye!